So, thank you, everyone. I'd like to introduce you Ana Ozaki, that is the moderator of the second panel. Ana Ozaki's research investigates the complex ways racial ideology have interfered with architectural understanding of climate and the environment within the African diaspora, mainly within the Black Atlantic. Ana is a professor in the Penn Art History. She was the inaugural Mellon Race Place and Equity postdoctoral fellow at the University of Virginia School of Architecture. She received her PhD in History of Architecture and Urban Development from Cornell University in 2022, specializing in Latin American and Africana Studies and working closely with Ezra Akan, Raymond Craib, and Salah Hassan. Before her doctorate, Ozaki participated in the Ignis Mutatis Res research project founded by the French government in local urban design projects, exhibitions, and public education programs. In collaboration with the Urban Studio at the University of Cincinnati and the Over the Rhine Foundation in Cincinnati. Ozaki was also involved in institutional and residential scale projects in Brazil and Angola. Ozaki holds a PhD in History of Architecture and Urban Development from Cornell University, a B.Arch and a BFA from Paraná Federal University and the School of Music and Fine Arts, respectively, and a MCS Arch and MCP from the University of Cincinnati, where she also taught various undergraduate courses. Wow, Ana, where are you? Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for the organizers and Vaniclea for this very thorough introduction, very generous. It's a pleasure to be here moderating this panel. So I'll introduce the speakers one at a time and keep count of the time, which presentation will be limited to 10 to 15 minutes. So it's a pleasure to be amongst colleagues and some friends. Really looking forward to the discussion today. So to start, I'll introduce Isabel Xavier, who is a Brazilian architect and production designer. And her research focuses on design as a tool for anti-racist and decolonized narratives and its reflections in the field of exhibition design. She's also a PhD student at São Paulo University and maintains her own multidisciplinary office practices. So please help me welcome Isabel. And Isabel, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you to Kufu and Vaniclea for the invitation to be in this powerful seminar. I'm very honored to be here. And when Kufu introduced this seminar team, Designing Blackness in Brazil, I immediately thought about how designing blackness through architecture it's based on identifying racialization, displacement from subject to structure. And in the last 5 years, I'm involved with Afrocentric and decolonial media projects in films and exhibitions. And I'm really proud to be, so, just a second, Tyrone, is the, how can I pass the thing here? It's not working. Thank you. So I'm really proud to be the production designer, the art director of the film Racionais MCs from the streets of São Paulo, which you can find on Netflix. The documentary shows the history of the most influential hip-hop Brazilian group, whose lyrics reflects Brazil racial and social issues. In a parallel, follows the history of the suburbs of São Paulo, connecting inequalities of space and racial justice. We can relate Racionais MCs to Public Enemy as the group expresses militant philosophy through music. It was a 10-year project, and Racionais were responsible for the racial literacy of a whole generation, myself included. And as a filmmaker and architect, I view my work through the lens of cinematic storytelling, functioning as a narrative designer. Narrative is by nature political. Exhibitions as public-facing platforms serve as a communications channel and are linked to discourse, aesthetics, ethics, and politics. And when we design exhibitions, we are dealing with public space and designing space for encounters with content, with ourselves, with the public, and for imagining alternatives in different scales. At my PhD research in bending anti-racism and decolonization paradigms into exhibition design practice, the research delves into decolonial exhibition design practice, exploring its intersection with race, power, and representation. It investigates how exhibition design systems shape power dynamics and decolonial narratives. It focuses on the re-evaluation of the exhibition design role and displays, not just as showcases, but as platforms for advocating for social and political discourse, serving as agents of meaningful changes. Therefore, what I'm going to do today is to show some projects that I did with my studio and try to share some of my creative process. For the exhibition História do Poder na África, A History of Power in Africa, my latest exhibition built, curated by Vanicleia Silva Santos, held at Museu Afro-Brasileiro Manuel Araújo. I was very honored of working with the Museum Afro-Brazil because it's the largest African and Afro-diaspora collection outside Africa, composed of more than 9,000 pieces. It was founded in 2004 from the private collection of the visual artist and curator Emanuel Araújo. The museum is a unique space for Black people and is also a 11,000 square meter building designed by the most celebrated Brazilian architect, Oscar Niemeyer. And in my training as a Brazilian architect, it's deeply rooted in understanding modern Brazilian architecture as the norm for the aesthetic. Therefore, modern Brazilian architecture is deeply rooted in colonialism, as colonialism shaped Brazilian heritage institutions. So when you think on the original museum space as a monolithic and silent space related to dirty white cube concept, I associate with plantations, the plantation space and its silencing of diversity. For this exhibition, we have to deal with the Niemeyer space and also create a narrative space that re-envisioning African artworks from the museum collection and works belonging to private collections, around 100 pieces of historic and contemporary artworks, which highlights Africa's central role in the development and of civilization and the arts. The exhibitions also provides detailed context of the acquisition of each piece, and the African circular time concept was very relevant for the curatorial vision. So I brought the circularity concept to shape the permeability and the ambulations of the space, and also to connect to Niemeyer architecture. We reveal the rounded staircase that was hidden from the permanent exhibition partitions and connected it visually with the temporary exhibition on the lower level of the building. And exploring the ambulation of space is connecting the idea of creating the meaning by walking. Sorry. For example, in film, we have the movement of the frames in a montage and the public is static. In exhibitions, we have the public moving through the content and creating meaning as they explore this space. To develop this space, it was almost a work of choreography, in a sense that we were choreographing the possibility of movements of the public through these objects of power. And the movement creates meaning, invites to make connections, to build bridges that connect their own history to the frame. For the exhibition, O Quilombismo, of resisting, insisting of flight as fight, of other democratic and egalitarian political philosophies held at Haus der Kultur in the Welt, HKW, House of Culture of the World in Berlin, I was tasked with developing a communal space inspired by quilombos, self-governing communities established by freed and escaped enslaved individuals in Brazil. This space was designed to embody Abdias do Nascimento concept of quilombismo, centered around radical solidarity. The exhibition featuring 68 artists show artworks from Africa and African diaspora, both historic and in a contemporary context. O Quilombismo was the first exhibition under the direction of the Cameroonian curator Bonaventure Bigen Dikun, and the HKW building was originally a 1957 Congress Hall, a historical building gifted by the United States to West Berlin during the Cold War. And the exhibition design was a deliberate effort to dismantle structures, both physically and intangible. I created an exhibition design language that drew inspiration from Abdias do Nascimento visual painting, Oxumaré Rising, representing the Yoruba deity Oxumaré. Oxumaré mythology is connected to rainbows and the harmonization of dualities in life, and also is connected to a natural snake process called echidysis, where the snake replaces its old skin with a new one. The The painting influenced the color palette seen across the exhibition walls, floors, and seating. And at Oquilombismo, we deal with this space in a very sensorial way. For this exhibition, we don't have wall labels or wall texts. The public was given a handbook with information of all exhibited works. The decision to forego the wall texts made the exhibition a holistic physical experience that privileged the feeling of being in and occupying space as much as the absorption in an individual work. For those Brasis, arte, pensamento negro, black art, black thinking, we have here the curators, Igor Simões, Lorraine Mendes, also Marcelo Campos. The exhibition was held at Sesc Belenzinho in São Paulo and is known as the largest exhibition exclusively dedicated to the production of Black artists ever held in Brazil. It featured around 2,040 artists, bringing together individuals of all genders and backgrounds from various Brazilian regions. At this time, the exhibition design concept was inspired by adinkra symbols, representing signs, concepts, and proverbs from Akan culture. And the Giaio Ático adinkra symbol was introduced to the freestanding wall display, symbolizing the courage to stand up to defend one's community. At the main pavilion of the exhibition, a structural roof symbolizing a cumieira, the central point of energy and foundation in a candomblé terreiro, a religion of African origin, was crafted above a swimming pool. The cumieira metaphorically represents the ancestry of Mestre Didi, one of the artists, and his terreiro Ileacipá. The wooden structure rises above the exhibit as a spiritual landmark, a direct reference to the Ile settlement. It was a pluriversal translation of an African Atlantic spiritual memory integrated to the exhibition design. For Carolina Maria de Jesus, Brasil para os Brasileiros, Brazil for Brazilians, it was an exhibition that told the story of Brazilian writer, Carolina Maria de Jesus, at the Instituto Moreira Salles in São Paulo. Carolina became known in 1960 with her first book, Quarto de Despejo, Diário de uma Favelada, an English Child of the Dark, The Diary of Carolina Maria de Jesus, in which she describes her daily life in the Canindé slum. The exhibition was a result of almost 2 years research. The selection of manuscripts and documentary material, more than 4,000 works, images, and objects were organized around extensively timelines, and it brought together works from some 70 artists in dialogue with Carolina's work. The challenge in this project was deal with the enormous amount of content and the narrow gallery space. We occupied the whole building, placing artworks and Carolina content, her writings, in many levels, at the stairs, at corridors. We place artwork in the sidewalk in order to invite a diverse public to enter the building. The color palette of the exhibition also came from this almost forensic research about Carolina. On one of her manuscripts, she mentioned that red was her favorite color, but she wouldn't dare to paint her house in red because she was afraid to be seen as a communist. It turned to a 2 year traveling exhibition touring 4 different cities. And one of the sites was a parking lot that we transformed in an exhibition space. What all these projects have in common is the understanding that of the exhibition design practice as a political use of this space. For me, it's a powerful opportunity to give visibility to untold stories and to open space for alternative ways of thinking about the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Can't wait to talk more about it. Your wonderful presentation. It's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Gisele de Paula, who is an architect and urban planner with a degree from Universidade Santa Úrsula. In addition to her degree in architecture, she also is specialized in set design and art direction, which broaden her vision and skills in creating spaces. One of the areas in which she works with great enthusiasm is the execution of exhibition projects, in which she has the opportunity to transform environments into captivating visual narratives. Throughout her career, she has had the privilege of working as a curator on collective and individual projects. Her trajectory is guided by her passion for architecture and the desire to create memorable experiences in each project. So welcome, Gisele, and the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'm not speaking English. I speak Portuguese, but I'm trying. Yeah. My name is Gisele de Paula. I'm Brazilian from Rio de Janeiro. I'm an architecture, and this is my presentations. This is about affect me. Vou pro português. Essa apresentação ela é sobre a minha relação de afeto com o meu trabalho. E espero que vocês sejam tocados tanto quanto eu sou diariamente. Eu usei um texto principal, que é Begin, Middle, Begin, que começo, meio e fim, começo, meio, começo, é um termo de um grande artista, mas também posso dizer que ele é um filósofo e pensador brasileiro, Nego Bispo. Nego Bispo, ele está presente em todo o meu processo criativo, assim como outras referências da filosofia e da literatura que eu vou apresentar. Esse termo é pensar que nós estamos em constante transformação e em constante reinícios e mudanças, e que isso nos permite sempre estar num lugar de aprendizado. Não passou. Please help me. Oh, thank you. O meu trabalho hoje, ele está em 5 estados do Brasil. É importante trazer esse dado, porque eu tenho percorrido não só o Brasil, mas no exterior, e isso tem mostrado também, dentro de um processo de pesquisa curatorial, a necessidade de ter pessoas pretas produzindo e pensando espaços expositivos. Eu busco sempre, dentro do meu processo criativo, trazer algumas grandes referências, pensar esse espaço-tempo numa referência de Leda Maria Martins, né? E pensar esse transiência, essa transitoriedade, que é o fato de estarmos olhando sempre para uma diáspora, para uma relação territorial. Esse olhar mais próximo, é esse olhar que eu venho me debruçando com a ideia de sempre que o meu corpo se posiciona no espaço, ele então, a partir disso, consegue absorver e integrar o desejo curatorial, para que eu possa então pensar isso espacialmente. Eu busco também sempre pensar no caráter provocativo, na ideia de que o corpo ele precisa circular pelo espaço e, para além de circular, ele precisa experimentar e vivenciar, sempre com o desejo de que seja um novo olhar para o espaço museográfico ou museológico. Todo o meu trabalho sempre introduzido numa proposta conceitual, então é importante que a curadoria se faça presente no lugar de pesquisa, no lugar, né, de troca e construção dessa expografia. A relação de registro corpóreo e sensorial, isso me interessa, eu venho me debruçando bastante pela relação do corpo com o espaço e com os sentidos. E, claro, num produto, né, numa proposta final, essa experiência sendo esse lugar enfim, de absorção e de vivência. Assim como Isabel trouxe os símbolos adíncras, eu vou voltar nesse tema, porque os símbolos eles são uma grande referência para mim, principalmente espacial. Eu olho para os símbolos adíncras e, a partir deles, eu vejo a arquitetura. Todo o meu processo de construção de um espaço expositivo, ele parte de uma simbologia. E aí eu vou apresentar, né, ou, claro, mencionar Abdias de Nascimento como minha grande referência estrutural de como se pode pensar o espaço a partir da pintura. Essa pintura, Exu e Ogum, de 1980, ela foi uma primeira proposta expositiva num processo de criação desse espaço. Eu vou mostrar um pouco mais à frente, onde eu consigo ver, a partir da pintura, toda a parte estrutural do que seria uma proposta expositiva. Falando de expografia, é você pensar que, a partir do desenho e do posicionamento estrutural que foi pintado que foi feita essa pintura, eu consigo olhar para essa pintura e entender isso espacialmente. A minha outra referência é Rubens Valentim, um grande artista também, que é minha referência estruturalmente pensando essas esculturas. Rubens vem de um processo de pesquisa do meu TFG, onde eu olho para a pequena África e penso espacialmente como seria um espaço museográfico expositivo para rememorar o acervo que foi encontrado na pequena África. E, a partir disso, a partir dessas pinturas, eu comecei a entender que eu poderia olhar para o espaço a partir do desenho que essa pintura me proporciona. Com isso, rememorando a pintura do Abdias, eu penso esse espaço expositivo da exposição Pixinguinha em como aquele tridente de Exu e Ogum ele se torna, então, o espaço expositivo. Ele propõe com que o visitante encontre ali uma primeira gira, uma circularidade inicial, contornando por uma encruzilhada, onde na pintura ele tinha esse tridente fechado, eu abro, criando ali no centro uma encruzilhada, e propõe todo o restante do percurso no final do tridente de Exu. A pintura se torna espaço. É como eu hoje penso expograficamente. A grande parte dos meus projetos, eles são baseados em olhar para essas grandes referências e, então, construir isso espacialmente. Aqui dá para ver um pouco melhor em como esse tridente de Exu e Ogum se constrói isso espacialmente. Leda Maria Martins é uma exposição do Itaú Cultural, em São Paulo. Eu tive o prazer de pensar espacialmente essa exposição com curadoria do próprio Itaú. Pensar esse projeto me fez rememorar o trabalho de Leda, que tem uma relação com o termo espiralar. Espiralar e pensar nesse processo, né? Assim como o Nego Bispo, começo, meio e começo, ela diz que os corpos serão afetados a partir da sua experiência no mundo, enfim, como se fôssemos sempre estar no processo de construção. Com base no trabalho de Leda, no livro Tempo Espiralar, um corpo, né? Um corpo-tempo espiralar, agora me faltou a memória, eu busco pensar essa estrutura e esse percurso do visitante através, primeiro, dessa parte conceitual inicial da expografia e depois todo um contorno que permite esse abraço e esse acolhimento. Então, a gente tem na parte de periférica da exposição, então, essa informação de quem é e como Leda se posiciona no mundo. A parte de trás é mais afetiva, onde ela traz, onde a curadoria buscou se debruçar pelo conceito, principalmente dela ser rainha do Congado de Jatobá, do Rosário de Jatobá. Então, aqui a parte expográfica foi pensar esse lugar mais de acolhimento para o visitante, inicialmente essa parte mais histórica. A exposição ela foi pensada a partir de um portal, onde esse portal acolhe inicialmente a parte histórica e, no fundo, a parte afetiva da grande dramaturga e escritora Leda Maria Martins. As cores usadas para essa expografia foram relacionadas a um pensamento muito afetivo, mas também construído junto com a curadoria, de pensar em como os trabalhos poderiam permear, gerando, então, uma experimentação e uma relação afetiva. Então, o rosa e o verde constroem esse percurso mais acolhedor para que o visitante, então, adentre a uma história tão importante como de Leda. Aqui já fotos da exposição. Elisa Martins aconteceu no mesmo período e o processo curatorial de Marcelo Campos, Amanda Bonan, Tainá Trindade, Amanda Rezende, Jean Carlos e o Felipe Scovino. Foi pensado a partir de trazer Elisa para o centro. O briefing curatorial foi que Elisa, que é uma artista conhecida, né, entre a década de 50 e 70, como uma artista de arte naif, poderia, então, ser vista dentro da contemporaneidade e que ela poderia, então, se colocar ao centro. Esse foi o pedido curatorial. Espacialmente, eu olhei para essa relação, principalmente do feminino, onde a gente poderia construir esse percurso, que é um percurso que coloca a Elisa ao centro teriam somente obras de Elisa. Mas em toda a parte periférica da exposição, tínhamos obras de artistas que atuavam no mesmo período que Elisa. o que me permitiu trabalhar expograficamente a ideia de trazer a Elisa para o afrofuturismo, propondo, então, toda uma estrutura em LED que dava a sensação de uma possibilidade de trazer ela para o tempo contemporâneo. E ao centro a gente traz essa iluminação bem focal nas obras e constrói, então, essa centralidade Elisa. Um pouco mais do 3D e aqui como ficou a exposição. O que permitiu que a gente olhasse para uma exposição que permitisse que os nossos corpos vivessem uma nova experiência do que é ver Elisa, não dentro do cubo branco, mas da possibilidade da gente pensar isso para o futuro. Dentro das narrativas, eu começo com grandes exposições em 2020, com uma exposição chamada Rua, de curadoria do Marcelo Campos e Amanda Bonan. Essa é uma exposição que me marca muito no meu processo criativo, porque foi uma exposição que tinha a proposta de trazer todo o acervo do mar, um acervo que se faltava, então, pessoas pretas, pessoas periféricas, e que traz, então, se pensa, então, uma exposição para aumentar o acervo com essas referências de mulheres, homens, pretos, trans e periféricos. Essa é uma exposição que foi estruturalmente pensada para que se representasse a rua, então ela tinha grafites, pinturas, mas ao centro a proposta curatorial era trazer uma pista de skate. E museograficamente, uma pista de skate ocupar um espaço expositivo, isso vem acontecendo posterior, mas era novidade. Essa pista de skate é de um artista carioca, Guga Ferraz. A estrutura foi pensar a sala na ideia de se ver a rua, então tínhamos grafites espalhados por todo o espaço e ao centro essa pista de skate. O que a pista permitia essa desconstrução da ideia do que é um espaço expositivo, onde o visitante chegava com seu skate e podia, então, enfim, experimentar o espaço de uma forma nova, experimentar o espaço expositivo de uma forma da rua. Atlântico Vermelho é uma exposição que aconteceu na ONU, na Suíça, e que ela se reverbera no Museu de Arte do Rio, na exposição Atlântico Floresta, onde a proposta curatorial era de pensar artistas pretos e indígenas, principalmente atuando, a gente olhando para o acervo, mas também olhando para os novos e jovens artistas. É uma exposição que, expograficamente, eu penso no Atlântico, que se desenha ao longo do espaço expositivo. Esse é a simbologia que vai de África ao Brasil, onde eu tenho África na parte superior e Brasil aqui na parte inferior, e esse recorte em vermelho, pensando no processo transatlântico e de mortes que aconteceram nesse processo escravagista, mas pensar em como nós temos esse sangue que nunca é falado dentro dos processos, principalmente históricos brasileiros. É uma exposição que eu tive cuidado de pensar isso em como esse recorte do mar poderia, então, configurar o espaço. E, expograficamente, a proposta é que eu me debruço sobre Ogum. Ogum é um orixá onde ele tem uma pena, e nessa pena nós temos alguns tons de cores entre o verde e o azul. Ogum porque ele é o protetor da floresta, e dentro da construção dessa exposição a gente está falando de Atlântico Floresta, que se reverbera de Atlântico Vermelho. A gente traz Ogum cuidando dessa proteção, então todo o entorno da exposição em azul, e o centro, essa grande mancha de sangue, enfim, transatlântica, escravagista. As paredes eu trouxe rememorando Ogum, o verde, esse verde é um verde mais denso, é um verde floresta, e que cria, dentro do espaço expositivo, essa encruzilhada, né? Ele permite com que o visitante precise circular e então se posicionar ao centro para conseguir ver todo o espaço expositivo. Prometo que eu estou acabando. Etnogênesis é um artista de São Paulo, o Quebradinha. Foi um convite pela segunda vez a trabalhar no Museu de Arte Moderna, né, em Niterói, que é o MAC, de Arte Contemporânea, o MAC, e a ideia de poder pensar o espaço expositivo para fora das estruturas foi a gente introduzir uma obra em escala, uma escala 1:5 do trabalho do artista, e nós reproduzimos isso, ficava ao som de a possibilidade de temperaturas e toda, enfim, e toda a diversidade do espaço, mas que foi pensado em como a gente poderia ocupar o lado externo. E internamente o museu ele é uma estrutura circular, onde a gente aproveitou essa ideia de circularidade e traz uma obra ao centro, mas também se dispõe às obras ao longo do percurso, criando, possibilitando criar essa circularidade e essa centralidade. Etnogênesis é uma exposição de um artista que trabalha, ele trabalha pensando a escala da arquitetura, uma escala em miniatura. É um trabalho incrível, que pensa a arquitetura periférica em escala menor e que ele traz dentro da pesquisa dele a ideia de que uma casa para quem quer morar. As cores usadas são com base na proposta curatorial. Geografias da Ancestralidade é uma outra exposição com curadoria de Renata Filinto. Eu tive o prazer de atuar nesse projeto como expógrafa, onde a ideia central dessa exposição foi dar visibilidades, ela vai falar um pouco mais sobre isso, mas dar visibilidades a artistas contemporâneos e os nossos ancestrais. A proposta expográfica foi pensar em como geografias, pensar a ideia de geografia, né, cartografia, de relação desses artistas, desse mapeamento desses artistas, poderia, então, construir um espaço afetivo. E dentro da conversa com a curadoria, foi pensar em como esses tons terrosos poderiam, então, construir um lugar acolhedor e um lugar afetivo. A gente trabalha com materialidades naturais, então vem o tijolo de terra batida para o centro da exposição, ele em escalas geográficas para que as obras possam ser vistas em diferentes alturas, mas todo o espaço expositivo é abraçado por esse tom terroso, a fim de construir essa relação com a nossa ancestralidade, com a natureza. Expograficamente, o espaço, a ideia de trazer uma exposição sem paredes era com a proposta de que todos tivessem, dentro de uma construção de igualdade, a mesma visibilidade. Então, você se posicionava no centro da exposição e conseguia ver até o fundo, sem criar hierarquias estruturais ao longo do olhar. Raízes, começo, meio. Começo é a grande tema que eu trouxe para essa apresentação. Eu vou ser um pouco mais rápida. É uma exposição que acontece em Salvador. Ela é uma exposição que busca trazer à luz ou apresentar artistas periféricos de Salvador. É uma exposição que ela termina no domingo, agora dia 9/3, mas que foi muito importante porque o território precisava ser visto e ser colocado ao centro. Então, há uma série de curadoria da Jamile Ribeiro com a Cíntia, que são diretoras do museu. A proposta expográfica foi pensar essa entrada, onde tínhamos, então, um jatobá ao centro, ainda na relação espiralar, essa ideia de que o visitante precisaria criar aquela proposta do portal do adeus, né? Enfim, do portal do não adeus, que é você circular 3 vezes, né, sobre uma árvore e aí, sim, né, seguir, infelizmente, dentro da proposta histórica. Mas a ideia era que você circulasse em torno desse jatobá e aí sim você poderia acessar o espaço expositivo. Depois, se quiser, eu posso falar mais sobre isso. Tem todo um contexto curatorial, mas no tempo não consigo falar muito. Mas a proposta era que o visitante circulasse em torno das obras e também não tínhamos barreiras estruturais. Isso é uma forma de que você não hierarquiza o olhar. Um pouco de como ficou. Eu sei. Infelizmente, acabou, mas posso passar um bem rapidinho? Não? Tá bom. Era Nádia Taquari, mas fica aí o convite para vocês verem meu site. É uma obra incrível da artista Nádia Taquari. Obrigada.
Thank you so much, Gisele. Hopefully we'll get in the Q&A and the discussion into some of the work that we didn't get the chance to see. I'm sorry. So it's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Professor Fernando Luis Lara, who works on theorizing spaces of the Americas with emphasis on the dissemination of architecture and planning ideas beyond the traditional disciplinary boundaries. In his several articles, Professor Lara has discussed the modern and the contemporary architecture of our continent, its meaning, context, and socioeconomic insertion. His latest publications include Spatial Theories for the Americas, Street Matters, Excepcionalidade del Modernismo Brasileño, Modern Architecture in Latin America, and Quid Novi, which got the Unpark Best Book Award of 2016. So it's my true pleasure to introduce and welcome Professor Fernando Lara.
Let's see if I can find those slides here. Oops. Thank you so much for the invitation. You organized an amazing day for us, and also for. I need to speak to the microphone. Okay. So, thank you to Tufo and Vani. Obrigado for organizing this amazing day for us, and also for the reception. I got here at Penn 1.5 years ago, and the two of you have been amazing on receiving us and welcoming us. I want to talk for 10 minutes about my new book, Spatial Theories for the Americas. Why do we need theories of space for the Americas? And I will try to answer that by telling the story of this image. Those two persons there in the cover holding a rope and measuring something It's the earlier register of architects in the Americas. They come from a document called Yoda Tona. This document was produced in Oaxaca, Mexico, in around the beginning of the 15th century, late 14th century, beginning of the 15th century. So think about the year 1400 in our Christian era. This document is a great metaphor for what happened to this knowledge. As I said, this document is called Yoda Toa, but this document was kidnapped in Oaxaca in the 1530s and given as a gift to Carlos V, Emperor of Spain. And after being, I don't know, in Toledo or Madrid or Valladolid, this document was sold and kidnapped again, right? Like a child kidnapped. And this document had to accept many names. It was named Codex Constantinopolitanus when it was in Istanbul. It was named Codex Lisboensis when it was in Lisbon. And even today, it's called Codex Vinobonensis because it sits at the University of Vienna in Austria. So the fact that I found those two persons in this document, which I hope it is the earliest record of architects in the Americas so far, but I hope it's not for very long, because I sincerely hope that other scholars will find other registers of architects in the Americas that are older than this one that is estimated around the year 1400. The fact that this document was kidnapped and brought to Europe and changed its name, it's a great metaphor for what happened to our knowledge about our spaces. I started my life in this amazing place called Minas Gerais that I share with Jorge dos Anjos and other people here in the audience. And I wrote about Brazilian modern architecture, and parts of my own history were missing. You know, in Minas Gerais, when I went to school, I don't think this has changed. But when I went to school, they told me that the history of Minas Gerais starts in 1697 when the bandeirantes from São Paulo found gold at the foot of the Itacolomi, which is exactly where Jorge was born. And that's not true. There were people there for thousands of years before. And so those concepts are missing. Those pieces of our history are missing. Also, as you very well know, Minas Gerais had the gold rush and received people from all over the world. The large majority of them enslaved people from Africa. Actually, according to the IBGE categories of preto and pardo, brown and black people, Minas Gerais has as many black people as Bahia. The difference being, in Bahia, the black culture got to be celebrated and elevated, and in Minas Gerais, it's repressed, extremely repressed, as Jorge can tell us later today. But my book is a struggle with that history. It's an encounter with a decolonial theory that was developed beginning in the 1950s, but mostly in the 1990s and early 2000s. And my answer to a major problem. This is a map that I drew 15 years ago. Actually, no, 12 years ago. The year was 2013, 2014. For this map, I took the 4 major books that are about modern architecture, the 4 most important references on modern architecture that we use to teach 20th century architecture in the Anglophone world. The books are Spiro Kostoff. There are some chapters about the 20th century, Kenneth Frampton, William Curtis, and Jean-Louis Cohen. And I put a little dot on the map for every building they mention in those 4 books. And the map is very explicit. I don't need to explain what is happening here. We teach the history of architecture as the history of white European architecture. So what we need to do about that is to de-link, I'm using Walter Mignolo's idea here, concept here, de-link our own spaces, our own histories from those European spaces, from those European concepts. It's not that we need to throw away Western civilization. No, I mean, we are the heirs of Western civilization. We live in Western civilization. But Western civilization is insufficient, absolutely insufficient to explain our cities, our places, our spaces, our art. So I will skip over that. This is a seminar they organized in Austin, Texas, 5 years ago. Those are the books that came out of that. I just want to wrap up and finish with those 3 articles, because this is what I wrote before I wrote the book. This is what brought me to the book. I mean, writing is my trade, writing is my profession, and I write as a way to think. So first, I was writing about the occupation of the Americas, because the rise of architecture as a discipline is very much tied to the European occupation of the Americas. As Arturo Escobar reminds us, there is no modernization without colonization. So Africa, the enslavement of African people, the Holocaust that happened with the Amerindians, with the native inhabitants of this land, the settler colonial occupation of those lands, they are very much tied to modernization and also to the rise of architecture as a discipline that manipulates those spaces and allow, in the case of the recent history, the last 500 years, allow the Europeans to control so many spaces far away from their places. The issue of abstraction is central to me, because abstraction is embedded in the human experience. But when abstraction kills relational processes, when abstraction ignores histories, when abstraction ignores community values, it becomes a tool for control. It becomes a tool for exploitation and colonization. And finally, the question that I leave with us here today, when we see at the Brazilian Black art, what frameworks, what concepts should we use to understand our spaces and our art? Because the European concepts are insufficient. We cannot rely on them. They can only go so far. And it's already very clear their insufficiencies. So what other concepts, what other ideas do we need to bring to the table? We need to infiltrate our conversation, our discourses, in order to really understand our lives, our places, and our art. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fernando, and the speakers, Isabel and Gisele. We're running a little behind schedule, so I'm wondering, looking at the organizers, if we have 15 minutes for the discussion. We'll keep it short. Also, as a reminder, the simultaneous translation is available through a QR code. Correct, that I believe is in the program. So it seems like our discussion will be a mix between Portuguese and English. Maybe I'll move here. Thank you so much again. Oh, there it is. So thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to, first of all, be in conversation and see the amazing work and thought process involved in your practice. Especially, I really liked how Gisele posted how this effective relationship to her work. Should I be speaking Portuguese? No. Okay. So some of the things that I thought were really interesting across the board was this relationship between the territorial or colonial territorial logic that is implemented in the museum, especially through the work of Isabel and Gisele's curatorial and exposition design work. Also exploring issues of liminality, like the symbolism of liminality is being used and taken advantage as a curatorial practice. I thought it was really striking, Isabel, how you utilize the parking garage. I believe you had to. It was probably not a choice, but I think you know, it's interesting to think about the symbolism of that situation. And in Gisele's, I really like Gisele's framing of the diaspora as constantly present, right? And even in how this territorial spatial logics that you are implementing in your curatorial practices. So some of them that I would like to highlight is just this idea of embodiment and relationship to the body, right? So it's very, again, symbolic to me that these exhibitions are using these practices of diasporic thinking in the spaces designed by Oscar Niemeyer, and the modernism in Brazil that is so tied to the plantation, as you mentioned, and as Fernando mentioned as well. These ideas of circular time and space in applying temporality and the relationship to ancestrality and how, oh, thank you. Oh, for me? Oh, for.
Well, when she speaks, then we can.
No, I speak.
We all
I
do
speak
good.
Portuguese. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to keep it short, but just anyway, very interesting to think about breaking from the white cube again, and sort of using this appropriating these marginalizing tactics of the street and the periphery, or even the transatlantic slave trade, and thinking about the ocean inside the museum space. So I just wanted to highlight. And I would like to start actually with Fernando's questions that you ended your presentation with. What concepts should we use? I think you all really well sort of exemplified and showed us some of the tactics, but perhaps we can try to summarize, synthesize together what that means.
I think we have to look at the territory, not only at the territory, but culture and territory. And I think we have always to try to questioning our knowledge that we already have, because our knowledge is colonized. So I think we should start by there.
Don't take it for granted. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I keep thinking about the things we need to unlearn. Using Ariela Zulai's concept here of unlearning, because, for instance, we need to unlearn our own whiteness and the whole idea that white is the norm. And when you provincialize, and when you call Oscar Niemeyer, for instance, white Brazilian architecture, then you open up the possibility of other architectures to come up when you locate and provincializes that. So I think that's an effort that we have not done yet. So one thing that I think Brazil has advanced tremendously is with the rise of Black consciousness and the rise of Black literature and Black scholarship, etc. But we also need to locate whiteness in order to deconstruct the idea that one is the norm and the other is a branch. That we can't deal with that anymore. There is no one trunk and one branch. There are two very intertwined trees, let's put it that way.
Mhm.
On that subject, I have a friend that always tells me that should racialize everything, everybody, like the white curator and white knowledge all the time. And then, as they do with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially in Brazil, where the myth of racial democracy, it's so damaging, right? And it has attempt to foreclose discussions about race, whiteness, and et cetera. So, but I want to open up to make sure that Gisele has a space. Do you want me to repeat the question or? Quer que eu
Sim,
repita?
por favor.
Não,
Let's repeat.
I'll just speak in Portuguese, I guess. Uma pergunta que ficou comigo da discussão do Fernando foi a apresentação do Fernando quais conceitos espaciais a gente deve usar, né? Se os conceitos europeus e colonizadores não englobam todas as dimensões da experiência americana. Então, queria pôr de volta essa pergunta para você. Você apresentou muito bem as suas estratégias e as referências teóricas, né? Mas só para dar um espaço para você falar disso.
Boa, eu vou começar citando Leda Maria Martins, né? Pensando como a relação do corpo, principalmente, não vai, ela embora ela é individual, mas ela também é coletiva. Pensar que o que nós entendemos como museu é esse museu do século XVIII, é esse museu colonial. É isso que nós temos como referência o espaço museal. E sempre numa relação, e aí François Berger, né, ela vai falar sobre como nós experimentamos o espaço, que é a desconstrução desse cubo branco. Entendendo que os americanos nunca vão, né, de uma certa forma, nunca vão experimentar o espaço como um brasileiro, mas a gente consegue construir espaços que dialoguem tanto com a relação construtiva americana, quanto com a relação do terreiro, que é o espaço quilombola, que é o Brasil. Então, a gente vai sempre fazer a proposta de pensar tipograficamente esse terreiro que vai, então, dialogar com a diáspora americana, que vai dialogar com a diáspora brasileira. Dentro de uma construção arquitetônica, a gente tem no modernismo estruturas que nos enrijecem, que pensam a ideia de que o espaço precisa ter somente uma entrada, uma saída, janelas grandes, janelas em fita, ou que vão ter paredes brancas. Infelizmente, o modernismo vai se debruçar sobre paradigmas, estruturas arquitetônicas que mostram esse formato de construção. Mas quando a gente vai para o espaço expositivo, efêmero, tudo é possível. Então, você quebra o modernismo a partir da possibilidade de, mesmo que efêmero, mesmo que temporário, construir uma outra possibilidade de espaço, uma possibilidade que acolhe, que toca, que sente, que cheira. E eu acredito numa arquitetura que possa, para além de ser afetiva, ela possa ser uma nova experiência.
Com essa relação do corpo também, que é tão importante, e da Leda Martins, que você mencionou o espaço-tempo, né? Enfim. Thank you so much. Obrigada. I want to make sure we take questions from the audience, even though we are running out of time. But are there any questions for our amazing speakers?
I have times. I'm finishing my presentation, please. Vocês querem, não? Não.
What you think? No? Okay. We're out of time.
I'm trying.
You tried. Go ahead.
understanding that we are discussing here the relationship between space, the colonizing the spaces, and Black exhibitions, exhibitions of Black artists in general. And I want to try to listen a little bit more, because sometimes it's not just about the European modernism. Sometimes it's about an idea of Brazilian modernism as a source of difference. But in the end of the day, the Brazilian modernism, it's made by white minds. So I want to understand for you both how we could really create other references and beyond the Brazilian modernism. I really felt that here in the United States, sometimes this Brazilian modernism, especially for the São Paulo modernism, became a model. You know, like, oh my gosh, they create a lot. No, they simply went to the communities and became the communities the new type. So I want to learn what references we can do to do different than that, even in Brazil, even in this framework of Brazilian modernism.
I'll give a very short answer because I know we are pressed in time. The most accomplished architect in Brazil was called Oscar Ribeiro Soares de Almeida Niemeyer. Why did he choose Niemeyer as a last name and not Ribeiro Soares de Almeida? And I'll stop right there.
I think we are already doing this. I think we have to look to our ancestry, ancestralidade, and look to this space, to the communal spaces. I think we are already doing this, looking to the communal spaces, to the escolas de samba, we have so many examples of these communal spaces, Carnival itself, quilombos. I think we have to return to the basic. No.
Yeah. Just everything. Thinking about what you just said and what you guys mentioned, Paulo Benjamin de Oliveira created Portela in the same year that Tarsila do Amaral painted. Thank you. Thinking about what Igor asked and what you just said, Paulo Benjamin de Oliveira created Portela, the oldest school of samba in Brazil, in 1923, the same year Tarsila do Amaral painted A Negra. So we have, we can think that the School of Samba, as it is, as an art institution, is maybe the project of modernism in Brazil. Not only we have that São Paulo modernism to look as a source of thinking the modernism in Brazil, but we have these people that look like us that were planning Brazil as a modern Brazil. We're planning life and architecture, thinking about space, art, ethics. So I think just what you just said, because Carnival, that is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I think that's a great way to end for now. Yeah. Thank you.